thank you all for joining us. I'm Ken Benson. I'm the president and one of the co-founders of Oakland Fire Safe Council. And I'm really glad that many of you here in the Bay Area are choosing to join us and maybe watch those warriors later. So I want to say thank you for all of you who have joined us tonight live for this very important topic. So if you got to go, go. Leave early or leave often, as I like to say. It's kind of like the old takeoff on the
we lost you, Ken.
There you go. With the old Chicago voting strategy, leave early or leave often, take off on vote early, vote often. So if you have a chance, in a high fire danger or in some pending disaster situation and you can leave, please do leave. Make sure you're ready, be prepared, look at some of our material on how to do that. But I'm sure you're going to enjoy tonight's session. And if you will, save your questions, put them in chat. And with that, I'll turn it back. I want to thank the participants and our presenters tonight for joining us. And thank you again for taking time to join us on this important topic. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. We're going to start with Jessica File. Jessica is manager of the Emergency Management Services Division of Oakland Fire Department. And then followed by Daniel Findley, a city planner who's going to talk about our general plan and that update. So Jessica, if you want to take it away with your presentation.
Thank you so much, Doug. And I would like to thank you all for inviting me to participate this evening. My name is Jessica File. I'm the Emergency Services Manager for the City of Oakland. And part of the team, because it does take a team that works together to ensure that the city is prepared to respond to any type of disaster that may occur. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about emergency notifications and evacuations. This evening, we'll talk about the Zonehaven implementation. I'll save the technical side for later this evening during the presentation. We'll talk about evacuation planning within the city, emergency notification, and actions you can take. So on June 15th, the City of Oakland, in conjunction with Alameda County, launched Zonehaven, which is our new emergency evacuation and warning platform. It helps emergency responders quickly identify and communicate areas impacted by disasters and warn the community whether they need to evacuate, shelter in place, or if it's safe to return home. While we were developing and working with the team at Zonehaven to develop Oakland zones, we took very careful consideration into the structure of the city and how the area was outlined. The zones in the area with narrow, winding infrastructure were developed to have few hundred or fewer structures in them. So looking at housing, facilities, buildings, businesses. And this was done so that we could allow for phased evacuations, targeting the highest threat areas first. In areas with wider infrastructure and multiple ways of egress, larger zones were developed because the infrastructure allowed for it. But we also took into account specific hazards. So a good example of that would be in the tsunami inundation area. We made sure to align the tsunami inundation area with the zones in that location so we could quickly and effectively evacuate the entire coastal region that could be impacted by a tsunami should we need to. Finally, all the facilities within the zone that may have special evacuation considerations, such as schools and daycare centers with more than 12 students, were identified, and that information was put into our evacuation details. On the screen right here, you can see a view of what the operators see. So this is not the public view of Zonehaven, but this is what the operators see when we are to click on a zone. So we've got a lot of information in there, such as the estimated population, estimated number of vehicles, the area and the structures in that zone. We also have the ability to download a booklet that has all of this information to distribute to our emergency responders to help them be able to quickly and effectively evacuate the area. One of the other things we took a look at are the sirens that are triangulated around each of these zones so that we could effectively notify members of the public utilizing our siren system. The city of Oakland is actively working on our evacuation planning procedures. Some of the things that are happening right now is that we're discussing the priority routes. Last year, in coordination with MTC, the whole Bay Area region identified priority routes, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. But these are the areas that we're going to make sure are clear first to help with things such as evacuation and relocation of individuals. We're also identifying the temporary evacuation points by area. So not necessarily down to the individual zone level, but a region of the city. Where would we evacuate the people to initially? So having those temporary evacuation points already on the map and ready to activate based off of the type of disaster. And that brings into shelters by disaster, because some of our shelters are going to be better suited for the event of a wildfire, where some others might be better suited for the event of an earthquake. So we really want to look at the infrastructure of those shelter facilities and how they can best be utilized. So we've got our evacuation shelters all laid out on a map as well. Additionally, we are implementing sustainable responder training. It's very important to ensure that our first responders and our dispatch staff are all effectively trained on our processes and procedures when we are conducting an evacuation. So having that developed as something that can be repeatable is incredibly important and sustainable. And then developing an exercise series. Last week on May 19th, we hosted a regional transportation exercise called the Bay Area Golden Eagle exercise. One of the things we did test during that was a tsunami evacuation. And so we were able to identify locations that could potentially be in an advisory and look at where we were to evacuate individuals from, and go through the flow of identifying the hazard, notifying the first responders, ensuring that we're pushing out the emergency alert messages, and following the entire procedure. So we will continue to conduct these exercises to ensure that we have the muscle memory. Oh, I did want to go over some evacuation terminology for you, but that evacuation terminology is also outlined in your OCP and R Guide 6. I'll just really quickly, our terminology was adopted by Cal OES in May 2020. We have that evacuation order, which is an immediate threat to life. This is a lawful order to leave now, and the area is close to the public. And we have our evacuation warning. That's when there is a potential threat to life and or property, and those who require additional time to evacuate and those with pets and livestock should leave now. And when we're looking at shelter in place, that's where we want individuals to go indoors, shut and lock the doors and windows, and prepare to self-sustain until further notice. Okay. So that is our evacuation common terminology throughout the state. We discussed a little bit priority routes. This is a draft. This is not the final draft of the priority routes in the region. And again, as I said earlier, these are the locations that we're going to ensure are clear in the event of a major disaster first, so that we can safely and quickly evacuate people, as well as get resources back into the region in a major disaster. So we're continuing to work on this process and working with our partners around the region, because as you can see, many roads lead through Oakland. So we are going to be part of that center of evacuation. Next, we need to know that you know when something happens. So emergency notifications are critical. Our Zonehaven tool works in conjunction with other means of emergency notification system. We have, the city of Oakland does have the authority to send out wireless emergency alerts. So that's something that we have that ability to send things directly to your cell phones when something happens. We have AC Alert, which has other means of notification. We can do text, we can do email, when it's something less than a critical emergency. Zonehaven, again, is another tool for us to use to be able to provide information on all types of disasters. We will use traditional and social media to get the information out. Another thing that can happen is neighbor to neighbor communication. So if you know something has happened and you know your neighbors, it's always a good thing to make sure your neighbors know what's going on. And then we have our emergency sirens. Again, we've got those tests the first Wednesday of every month at noon. If you're hearing it outside of the testing timeframe, that's time to take action and tune into the radio and the local news to know what's going on. We do have a 3-minute fast wail, which means a fire. 3-minute steady tone is shelter in place, and a 3-minute slow wail is a tsunami. And if in doubt, evacuate. Okay. So what should you do? What actions can you take right now? Oh, evacuation routes. We want you to know your neighborhood and know 2 or more ways out. Some of us are very complacent when we go. I drive in and out of my neighborhood the same way every single day. So I challenge you to practice a different way in and out of your neighborhood, because if we don't practice it, we're not going to know it. We're not going to do it in an emergency. Your normal way may not be the best way for you to get out. Additionally, we need you to harden your home. Again, I'm gonna guide you back to the OCPNR guide number 9 for hardening your home, and it's got resources there for you. Go early if you need to. As soon as you are notified that there is an evacuation order, you should leave. And that's why we need to have that evacuation plan in place and have all of our tools and resources tested. If you are a member of the community with access and functional needs, or if you need additional time to evacuate, monitor those red flag events. We push that information out. The National Weather Service does it for a reason. So consider relocating prior to a fire during a red flag event. Additionally, again, sign up for AC alerts. We can't tell you that there's a problem if we can't reach you. We want you to know your zone. And we've been pushing that out through the community. Make sure you get on community.zonehaven.com and know your zone, write it down. Okay. And then we want you to be ready, create and maintain that defensible space and harden your home against flying embers. Get set, prepare your family and home ahead of time for the possibility of having to evacuate and the possibility of losing your home. And go. When wildfire strikes, go early for your safety. Oh, in California, wildfires aren't a question of if, but only a question of when. And if you choose to live near a natural area or a state where wildfires are a potential hazard, it's important for you to understand and to know those 3 simple steps of ready, set, go. Okay. And I know we're gonna wait till questions a little bit later, but I would be remiss if I didn't take this chance to announce that June is CERT month. And for more information about CERT and CERT month and some of our other programs, go to Ready Oakland to sign up for training and see what events we might have. And of course, we've always got our QR code to help you access those sites. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Daniel Finley.
Thank you, Jessica. Great presentation. Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Finley. I'm a planner in the City of Oakland's Planning and Building Department. I'm part of the Strategic Planning Division, which is handles a lot of the long range planning for the City of Oakland. So I'm here to just kind of give a brief introduction to sort of the main major project that the Planning Division is taking on right now. We are embarking on updating our general plan, which I'll go ahead and share the presentation. It's going to be taking place from now really until 2025. So invites public members of the public and all stakeholders who are interested in the general plan to really participate. And I'll share how methods to participate later on in the presentation. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen while I pull it up here. So just real briefly, I'll go over the general plan and I'll talk about what it is, kind of what the purpose it serves, some of the community engagement that we've done so far, and what we'll be doing moving forward. I'll touch on the safety element updates, and I'll share a bit of some upcoming opportunities to get involved. So what is the general plan? Essentially, it's a policy document that serves as a sort of a constitution for the development and conservation of land within the City of Oakland. Really, it's a visionary document. It establishes a set of visions for how the city grows, how it maintains neighborhoods, how it protects certain places, whether open spaces, where jobs might go, how people get around. And with that, there are supporting policies, goals, and implementation measures to achieve that vision. There are a series of required topics or chapters, we call them elements, in the general plan. They relate to land use, circulation, which is transportation, how people get around, housing, conservation of natural areas, open space. This includes like parks, public spaces, noise and safety. And there are also some optional elements that's for another time. A new law has now required that when cities update certain elements, namely the housing and the safety elements, now an environmental justice element is required. As I mentioned before, this is a multi-year effort. We are just now in phase one. We started back in November, and we're going through phase one really through 2023, and then phase two will start very soon after. Phase one really kind of covers the main the elements right now. Housing is kind of the compelling element that needs to be updated, and state law requires now that when the housing element is updated, so does the safety element needs to be updated at the same time. And now also the environmental justice element is also being created. So those three elements we'll cover in phase one. Phase two covers the remainder of the elements. We'll also have an industrial lands policy, not so much an element, but a policy around industrial lands and how the City of Oakland kind of sees how we want to treat industrial land, retain jobs, but also allow for industrial lands to move forward in the next 20 years. I should mention that the general plan update is a 20-year horizon. That's why it's called Oakland 2045. So we can kind of have an idea of what the next 20 years will look like. So like I mentioned, it really kind of sets the vision for how properties, how development takes place, kind of where housing goes, where jobs go related to housing, how people can get around, whether it's bikes, pedestrians, wheelchairs, public transits, number of quality of parks, talking about where the current parks and open spaces are located, how we maintain those parks, and maybe where new parks should be identified, to be built or the space set aside for. Risks from hazards, this includes natural hazards and maybe human caused hazards. How we also go about kind of maintaining cultural and natural resources. Everyone kind of can point to Lake Merritt as kind of the crown jewel for Oakland. This is, how do we maintain those really kind of natural resources that also can maybe informally become kind of a cultural resource as well. But that also includes, museums, performing arts theaters, places of culture that we kind of think of traditionally. Community engagement, we've done a fair amount so far. We started back, kind of really kicked off the process in November 2021. This is kind of just a handful of some of the organizations with whom we've collaborated and will continue to. Really kind of covering the entire span of Oakland, really trying to get organizations in all parts, East Oakland, Central Oakland, and East Oakland, West Oakland. On the right here,
Daniel?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Is there any way that you're able to kind of wrap this up on and make sure that we have enough time for Charlie and Zonehaven?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and just move forward, kind of the safety element update. So really, it's a required element of the general plan. It was adopted in 2004, amended most recently in 2021 with the adoption of the local hazard mitigation plan. Really, kind of there's three major pieces of legislation that was passed. Senate bills 379, 99, and 747. Dealing with kind of vulnerability, climate change, and how the city addresses climate change and the impacts of climate change moving forward. So you'll see in the safety element updates vulnerability assessments and adaptation strategies for dealing with the impacts of climate change. And then SBs 99 through 747 really talk about evacuation routes in identifying those residential areas that are in very high fire severity zones that have two or that don't have two or more points in and out of those neighborhoods. So the safety element will identify those areas, but then also seek to look for ways to address those gaps. And so so the city of Oakland is coming to you, the general public, to help help identify solutions. We're really kind of at the point now here where we have an opportunity to really kind of set the policies and set the table for the city of Oakland and over the next 20 years to make sure that we don't put at risk more people, property, in those areas that are susceptible to all sorts of hazards, geological hazards, wildfire, sea level rise as well. Real quickly, kind of a map I'm going to show you. I'm sure you all have seen this before. Shows kind of where the liquefaction areas are, the high risk areas for wildfire. This is the Hayward Fault. Kind of give you guys a sense of sort of the natural hazards that can afflict Oakland. How to get involved? Yeah, so we're coming out to you. We're really kind of introducing the general plan update, what it is. We will be, staff and our many partners will be going out to several community events. We'll have tables there, and staff, you can answer questions, you can share, they'll be able to answer questions. You can share what's your priority, what kind of are the major issues in your neighborhood. And we will be hosting some focus groups. Please let me know whether if you have any interest in joining those focus groups. And I do encourage you all to visit the website here. It's a great website, lots of resources. It's updated very often, and you can sign up for regular updates. Again, the email address is here. If you have any feedback you want to share after this presentation or any questions, do please send us an email. We'll be at the next major kind of community events coming up on June 4th and June 9th. There's all opportunities to come talk about safety and how it interplays with the entire general plan. update. So again, my name is Daniel Finlay. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you all. And I'll stick around towards the end of the remainder of tonight's meeting to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to have Charlie Crocker talk about Zonehaven. And apparently I made a little bit of a mistake here, co-founder and CEO of Zonehaven. But Charlie, I'll let you correct me and then please take it away. Thank you.
Right. The only correction is that we're now part of another company. So I'm no longer the CEO. So, but I am the co-founder of Zonehaven. We built Zonehaven out after the wildfires in California over the last several years. We worked with people in Alameda County, San Mateo County, and Contra Costa County to figure out how to make this application work. And now we're starting to see it blossom across the state and moving into many other states in the US and even some opportunities international. So I'm going to go very quickly through a couple slides and then I'll walk you through the actual application. Jessica's already kind of given you some context for how they're using it, but I want to give you a little background for how we got here. Over the last few years, we've seen such a huge uptick in the destruction and size of wildfires. This is a list of the 20 most destructive wildfires in California. 7 of those fires happened in the last 2 years. So we've really seen a change. And as Jessica said, it's not a matter of if we're going to have wildfires, it's a matter of when. 2 years ago, the CZU Lightning Complex fire, which is number 12 on this, burned through what they called the asbestos forest. They never expected it to burn in the redwoods of the Santa Cruz Mountains. And we had a huge fire with over 70,000 people evacuated. In the past, evacuations were defined after the fire happened. And so it took some time to figure out where you were going to send people and how you were going to translate information that was drawn on a map and get that out to the general public. But as Jessica stated, they've already defined all the zones, they've already defined all the shelters, they've already figured out where the evacuation routes are. All of this information was done now beforehand so that the evacuations can happen much more quickly. And then getting that message out can be difficult. So there are a lot of different ways people expect to receive information from your local news, from Facebook, from your AC alert system. So with the application, we're able to feed information directly into all of these different systems and at the same time give you an immediate view into what the evacuation status is of those zones through the community application. So very quickly, I'll walk through the last year's fire season. So Zonehaven has been around for a few years. In 2020, we participated in 2 large fires, the Glass Fire and the CZU Complex Fire. And then in 2021, we participated in over 40 different incidents. Here's a list of fires, in addition to debris flows, active shooter, tsunami events as well. And what you see here in these numbers is many of these fires actually cross jurisdictional boundaries. We know the Oakland Hills, for example, share a border with Contra Costa County, both the El Cerrito side and Orinda and some of the county lands up in that area. So if you were to have a large incident in that area, most likely there would be coordination needed between the agencies. And so by having both Alameda County and Contra Costa County using a common language, a common evacuation platform, it's going to make it much easier for people to communicate and for you to understand what's going on. Here's an example in last fire season. There was a fire, the Dixie Fire in Northern California. It crossed 5 different counties, Shasta, Tehama, Plumas, Butte, and Lassen County. And when the fire first started, there were 3 or 4 different maps showing different areas being under an evacuation. So if you, and here's somebody on Twitter who said, one of the problems we have here is that we have separate evacuation platforms that involve 4 counties, 3 different websites. And if I go to one site, it may show something is not under evacuation. I go to another site and it doesn't. So within about a week of the fire starting, we were able to get everybody onto a common platform, and it made it much easier for both the incident command folks and for the public to understand what's going on. And this last weekend, the Pope Fire broke out in Napa County. Luckily, the winds were only around 8 to 10 miles per hour. The folks on the ground in Napa were able to run a fire simulation in the tool and determine that the fire was not going to move that quickly. They were able to then do an evacuation in the direction of the fire, and stuff in yellow is where they put it under an evacuation warning. This lasted for about 7 or 8 hours, and then luckily they were able to get that fire out. 2 days before that in Yuba County, the same thing happened. Yuba County put one zone eventually under an evacuation order. Blue is advisory, yellow is evacuation warning. And the key thing here is in both cases, they were able to get these up and running within minutes of the decision being made to evacuate, rather than having to spend the time translating from hard copy maps and calling people and figuring that out. In addition, in Napa County, here you can see road closures. So you'll see road closures and you'll see shelters being turned on by your agencies so that you always know what the current status is of the zone, where the road closures and traffic control points are, and where you should be headed. Another example in this last season, the Emerald Fire in February in Laguna Beach. Laguna Beach is using the Genesis speakers, similar to Berkeley. You can see them here. Oakland has the sirens, and so I just want to say how valuable those are, because in Laguna Beach they use the speaker systems for about a day and a half in order to keep communicating to people what to do and how to get out of harm's way. And the good thing is you don't have to turn on all of the sirens at once. You can turn the ones on in the areas where the fire is happening. So this stuff is real. These fires are happening. This is stuff that's happened in the last couple of months. So with Zonehaven, the agencies are able to, from a single platform, get information out to the community site, which is called Aware, integrate directly with Waze and into the AC alert system and other tools that are used by the agencies, deliver to social media, email, and press releases. And then they're also able to generate these fire simulations so that you can very quickly put a point on a map and make a decision. Is there a possibility that this fire is going to get out of our hands quickly? And if so, we should institute an evacuation very quickly. Here's an image from Lassen County from their computer dispatch. One of the things that they told us during the Dixie Fire is that by having that common map that the general public could go to look at, drastically reduced the number of calls coming into the computer to dispatch folks, which really allowed them to focus on emergencies where people needed help. So knowing your zone, knowing how to get access to the website so that you'd always know what the current status is, and getting out of harm's way as quickly as possible was mission critical here. So the good news is that we're starting to see regions come on board to the application. So in the Bay Area, 9 of the Bay Area counties are all using this common platform. So this means that if you work in another county other than Alameda County, but you live in Alameda County, you'll understand what to do and how to think about an evacuation, regardless of where you are. Or if you have family members or friends that are in other areas in the region, you'll be able to help them understand also the value of knowing your zone. So I'm going to skip now to a live demonstration. I've got a couple things we can do here. First, I'm going to go to the Aware application. Anybody here can go to this. This is live and available to you. I'm highlighting it here, community.zonehaven.com. I noticed that Aaron also put that into the chat, and you can always reach out to the Office of Emergency Services and find this also on their website. So I've just picked a random address. I don't know if I picked one of your homes, but if you come to this site and you enter an address, I'm going to put in 5668 Amy, it automatically finds it. And then what it'll do is it'll center on that zone. And now you know your zone. You are in Oakland E045. So this is something that you can now write down. And then if this zone was under an evacuation order, the zone would be red, this would be red, and it would tell you why this zone is under an order. And then there may be road closures and shelters that are turned on as well. From here, you can see the subscribe to alert function. If you click on this, it's a good way to get to the AC alert system so that you can sign up for AC alerts. So if you go to the community website and you select any zone, that image will pop up and you will have a direct link to the AC alert website. We highly recommend that you sign up for that so that you get your information directly from the agency, and make sure that your neighbors and family in the area also do that as well. So the way that the agencies think about this is they have access to this information, and she showed you how that information is available. So what I'm going to show you real quick here, I'm just going to turn this. Oh, that's okay. I'm going to refresh then. So this is a section of Oakland. If they were thinking of planning an evacuation or want to understand, they can come in here and very quickly click on a zone and get the information about that zone. Think of each zone as almost like a filing cabinet of very specific and special information. So there's a population during the day of around 600 and about 1,000 people at night, number of vehicles, acres. Now, if we were to evacuate this zone and this zone and this zone, we now see the population adding up and the cars adding up. This may seem like a very simple function, but it's difficult in the heat of the moment to understand the effects an evacuation might have in your region. So, for example, if you had a map, a paper map, and you draw a polygon with a Sharpie on this, you're not going to know how many people you could be potentially putting on the road network. And then in addition, we provide a tool for the agencies to be able to look at the potential number of cars that would be going to those locations. And so now we can see that if we were to evacuate these areas, it's likely that we'd be sending 1,000 cars to this intersection, getting onto the 13, and maybe around 600 cars to this intersection. And then if we start adding additional areas, we'll start to see that those numbers get bigger and bigger, and we're going to make sure we have traffic control points there. I've also prepared a fire here to show you. This is a potential fire that could happen in the hills, in the Oakland Hills. This is assuming very extreme conditions. And so if there was a small fire start here, the agency could put that information in, and then they can look at the progress. So within the first 2 hours, the fire wouldn't have moved very much. Hour 3, it starts to get bigger and there's some spotting. Hour 4, it starts to move into some of the neighborhoods. Hour 5 and 6, it gets bigger. And each time this happens, they start to understand the population, the number of vehicles, et cetera, that could be affected by this fire. And then now, this is assuming, of course, there's no fire suppression in this model. But it gives context for the agency to say, you know, this could get out of hand. Let's start warning people. Unlike the Napa fire, where we ran that fire, there was really no wind, and people were very confident that they would be able to get that under control. So they made the evacuation a little bit smaller than they would have otherwise. So once again, highly recommend that you come to community.zonehaven.com. You enter in your address, you figure out your zone, you write that down, and that you subscribe to the AC alert system. That's all I had for today, but I'm happy to answer any questions with the rest of the group.
Thank you, Charlie. That was good. That was great information. Yeah, there are a number of questions that did pop up in the chat, and Jen and I can go through those, and I don't know that we'll be able to get to everyone in the next 10 minutes or so, but let's do our best to answer some of these questions. Jen, did you want to take one?
So kind of dialing all the way back, we have one from Nancy that says, will Zonehaven notify us of the exact location of the trouble so we know which way is the safest route for evacuation? This is critical in the hills.
Jessica, is that something you want to answer?
Absolutely, I
Thank
can
you.
take that one. So Zonehaven will not notify you of the exact area of the hazard. That will be coming out in the emergency alerts. And that's why Charlie was talking about how important it is for you to go ahead and sign up for those emergency alerts. We will put a notification as to which direction to go away from the hazard. And if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Yeah, I mean, the fires move very quickly, and the ability for us to gather that data and make it available is, it can sometimes be difficult. And so we will always provide you with whatever the agencies and the fire department have, and they have the most current information. So, keep yourself aware, go to the site and see the latest alert. But we won't be putting on a polygon, for example, of the border of the fire, because that polygon could be 8 hours out of date, and the fire could have moved in a big way.
And to that point, timely, accurate information is critical.
Thank you both. I just want to reiterate, Aaron from Zonehaven noted in the chat to find your zone at community.zonehaven.com. Charlie noted that, and Jessica too, but just to reiterate, if you haven't yet, if you don't know your zone, go to community.zonehaven.com, put your address in like Charlie did, and then look at your zone number. In Oakland, it'll be OKL-E and then a 3-digit number. Write that number down, tape it to the inside of your door, memorize it, make sure everyone in your family knows it. Thank you. So there was a question, are there examples of the Oakland sirens, the sounds they make?
I don't have any files of the siren sounds.
I don't either. I don't know if I've
That's
seen
a
it.
great idea, though. Love that idea.
We'll have to do a little research on that and see what we can do.
I like it.
Here's a question. When an evacuation order is given, what happens if the public members refuse to leave?
So under California Penal Code, the local city law enforcement does have authority to mandate the personnel to evacuate. But I do not see that being a physical removal of a person. And I know in multiple situations, people have refused to leave. So
One thing I'll say is we saw this happen in a couple different fires. And what's kind of sad about it is often the people that stay behind end up needing to be rescued, which means that those resources are pulled off the front fire line and other people's houses end up burning. So it's really encouraged that everyone leaves when they're told to. Otherwise, you end up potentially, really affecting the overall ability to fight the fire.
Thank you. Next question, is there a plan to have enough emergency dispatch staff working during an emergency? Understanding that Oakland is short-staffed.
I want to reiterate something that Charlie talked about during the presentation, which was your ability to go and look at Zonehaven to get that information so you don't have to call 911 to know where the hazard is. And also, signing up for those emergency alerts so we can push that information to you. And that will take a lot of the load off of our dispatch staff. For your information, we have 2 new dispatchers in training. We have recently hired a new dispatch manager. So we're very excited, and we are looking to hire additional dispatchers. So the staff is growing, but there will never be enough.
Thank you. The next question, what if car breaks down or runs out of gas and blocks the road?
That is a definite challenge that may happen. First of all, my request to you is keep your vehicle greater than half full. I understand with today's gas prices that may require, a loan to get that done, but please try to keep your vehicle over halfway full at all times. So in the event that you have to evacuate, you have the capacity to do so. If a vehicle does break down on the side of the road, And we don't have emergency services personnel in the area at that immediate time. That's where we look to our neighbors, helping neighbors to move that vehicle off the side of the road and take those individuals and help get them out. That's what we really would hope to see, is our neighbors helping each other. And that's really part of our community emergency response process.
One other thing I'd like to say is that when you leave with the fewest cars possible. We've seen many fires where a single house will leave with an RV and 5 cars, and it will just crowd the road. The best thing you can do is fit as many people as you can so that the roads do not get crowded.
And I'm going to take just a little bit more to pile on to that. A recent paper that was published by UC Berkeley, researchers recreated the wildfire model of the 1991 Oakland Hills fire and developed scenarios comparing variables such as fire speed, evacuation behavior, and response policies. And based on the model, it showed that the number of vehicles people take has the biggest impact on evacuation time. So please, fewest vehicles possible.
Thank you. Jen, you want to grab the next one?
Sure. Are we down to, is there an evacuation plan for those of us who do not drive? Is there an evacuation plan for those of us in the flatlands? Great question.
So,
Jessica?
sure. For those that don't drive, we do have some resources to be able to coordinate with AC Transit, and we have that in our emergency operations plan, where we will coordinate folks being able to be picked up through other transit authorities, like using our paratransit, East Bay Paratransit, AC Transit. Understanding if it's a regional incident, those resources will be stretched thin. So if we're looking at an earthquake type scenario, a fire will be more localized. And also, again, I would like to go back to neighbors knowing neighbors and supporting your neighbors. That is really important, because that would be the fastest way. But without that being the case, yes, there are resources available that we will activate to support getting people out. Flatlands, we have a much broader infrastructure for being able to evacuate. There are many more roadways out of the areas in the flats, but we still have identified priority routes in the flats to be able to clear first and ensure we are getting those roadways open and ready to evacuate people.
Thank you. How would people get hooked up with those resources that you were talking about?
Oh, and that's where calling 911 would be important. We can also push that through 211 to make sure that.
Okay, yeah. That's 211 Eden INR. I'll put that in the chat. And next questions. Are sirens ever tested to ensure they work when needed and that residents know what they sound like?
So we have our sirens tested the first Wednesday of the month at noon, but they only do the slow wail during that test. So you only hear the one tone.
And
Sorry, just interject. If you're in
Go ahead.
Oakland, put it in your calendar, first Wednesday of the month, you should hear a siren. There are 27 of them around the city. But it does, the sound doesn't always carry to all parts of Oakland. If you're in a little bit of a canyon or other things that are blocking the noise, you may not hear it, but at least check out the first Wednesday of the month, see if you hear it. If you don't, then you may need to be in another place.
Sign up for AC Alert.
speaking of AC Alert, someone asked, won't faulty Wi-Fi mitigate usefulness, reliability of AC Alert?
So it depends on what you're utilizing. If we're talking about Wi-Fi, potentially. I know there are folks in the hills that don't have cell signals and have cell boosters instead to help support. So AC Alert is going off your cellular system. Texts can get through a lot easier, and we will send a text when that comes. And that's also why we're using multiple modes of communication. So do you have an AM FM radio? Do you have a NOAA weather radio? That would be really important. So if you can get a NOAA weather radio to be able to also have alerts come through in that manner, it would be critical.
The
Great, I
next,
think that, so that answers the, other than the outdoor sirens, can the city activate something like Amber Alert to our mobile device? So
So
that you can hear the sirens.
I would like to actually tag onto that one a little bit more. So an Amber Alert is a wireless emergency alert, and the city does have the authority to push out wireless emergency alerts to cellular devices.
thank you. And then the second part of that question is, I live by one of the sirens in the hills and I do not hear it when I'm inside my home. Here's a tip, especially on red flag warning days when we know that the fire danger is very high. Open a window. It would maybe allow you to hear the siren better. So just a tip.
Let's see, Zonehaven does not seem to be working, so Elizabeth, were you trying to get onto the website to find the zone? Maybe that was the question. And then we've got a hand up with Diane. Hi, Diane, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute. Hold on.
Hi, guys. Sorry. I was interested to learn. I was asking these technical questions in another community or event I attended, and they couldn't give me this level of information. I'm interested in learning if those that are disabled, like deaf and blind, have a registry where those folks could be prioritized in the event that there is really some problem. And I also want to know that Zonehaven is awesome. It seems like it could also be used in the event of an earthquake or even an active shooter. So Charlie, good for you.
Yeah,
Those
well,
are my questions. I can't
yeah,
wait.
we've been used, unfortunately, on an active shooter. Alameda County ended up using it also during the recent tsunami from the explosion in Tonga. Santa Cruz County and San Mateo County used it for the debris flows. Debris flows are often common during rain after a fire when the vegetation is gone. So, you know, the goal is that it's the place you go anytime you're being asked to potentially evacuate or shelter in place.
Oh, and real quick, before we get, there's so many people in the community. I work in East and West Oakland on projects with community-based organizations. I'm always the one to make them aware of all this really good, juicy technical things that they could also share with whoever. How do we reach you guys to really get this in the hands of those folks who may not be on a call when the Warriors are playing? Okay.
Jessica and her team have been doing an amazing job getting the word out using variety of different.
When you guys are talking the hills, I'm really talking to those people who are low technical, low access. They're not trying to, it's a different conversation, and I can break the ice on that. And I'm excited to learn all of this. Thank you.
Diane, do you belong to a certain neighborhood council?
No, I'm on the, I'm a, what did he call it? A United Senior of Oakland and Alameda County, and Nate Miley. I'm working on a project with Supervisor I have my own outreach thing, but this is what I do as community educate, working in clinical and social research, collecting data and sharing it. But I'm always the one who just finished on the grand jury, serving there and being a former commissioner. But I went to Oakland High, and I am so committed to making sure people get the information.
Thank you,
Diane,
Diane.
we would love to connect with you and help facilitate some dissemination of information.
Very good.
This is
my
open.
questions, I'm really concerned. My son took ASL, and this is a huge community that, you know, even a big pride event, or how is that person going to get the help as a priority?
Exactly. If you wouldn't mind sharing your email in a direct message, we can start the conversation and see what we can do.
Very good. Thanks, Guy.
Thank you. There was one other question. What is a NOAA station? It's a weather radio, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. There are NOAA, there are radios that you can buy, usually a little AM, FM radio that also, some of them have the ability to tune in to NOAA channels, frequencies, and you'll get updated weather information and other pertinent information if something's going on. Final question, can we get a recording for our neighborhood group? Yes, we are recording this. We will post it up on the Oakland Fire Safe Council website in a couple days, and we'll send that out to everybody who signed up. So I think that's all the questions.
I just wanted to know if, Elizabeth, did you have a better luck with the link that I put in the chat with trying to get into Zonehaven? Cross fingers.
Okay. Maybe you can chat on that. We're just gonna wrap this up. We just have a couple minutes left. We wanted to note the guides that we have. This is our Oakland Community Preparedness and Response Guides. And thanks, Jessica, for giving a shout out on some of these. So if you go to our website, oaklandcpnr.org, we have a guide on Zonehaven, which is, you can see right there on the screen. Take a look. It's just a summary information on what Zonehaven does, and it has the link community.zonehaven.com. We have a guide on getting notifications and warnings for Oakland on what's going on, personal and family preparedness, emergency planning, creating your family emergency plan. Our guide number 6, emergency evacuations, has a lot of information on what to do to prepare for, and then to actually take part in an evacuation or shelter in place. And then our guide number 7 has a couple of checklists for evacuation and go bag items. So we hope you check those out. Next, just wrapping up here, wanted, Ken, did you want to, is Ken still on? Ken may be watching the game. So we want to note that our next Oakland Fire Safe Council meeting, the June meeting, is June 18th at 10:30. Public is welcome. Go to our website, oaklandfiresafecouncil.org, look under events, and the information will be there to attend our meeting at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday, June 18th. If you're interested, we have Oakland Fire Safe Council swag, this beautiful hat for sale, $25. That's our cost. If you're interested, go to the oaklandfiresafecouncil.org and fill out the contact form. We'll get one of these to you. They're wonderful. And then Jen, you want to note our newsletter?
Sure. If you haven't already, we encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. We send it out every couple weeks or so. And we've got lots of helpful tips on disaster preparedness, and we really try and tailor it towards the Oakland communities, surrounding communities, so that the information is pertinent to everyone. And yeah, so please go to the Oakland Fire Safe Council website and click the subscribe button. And we promise not to spam you, or we don't give out your information. And Doug, before we sign off, if you could just explain the NOAA radio one more time. I think we might have a little confusion. Somebody was asking for a station, but it's not really a station, or is there a station you'd recommend?
Well, NOAA radios have either 6 or 11 channels or frequencies that they broadcast on. So if you get a radio, AM, FM portable radio that has NOAA capability that can pick up those NOAA channels, you just check each channel until you get one that's local and that you can hear it. Oh, goody. Look at that.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you for sharing that. And if there's further confusion on that, feel free to contact us at Oakland Community Preparedness and Response. Give us a call, us an email, or Oakland Fire Safe Council, and we can help you personally on a more personal level if you have more questions about that.
Yeah, so thank you very much. first, of course, want to thank our speakers tonight, Jessica, Daniel, and Charlie. That was awesome, great information. And thanks everyone for attending. I know it's again, Warriors game, go Dubs, but we appreciate everybody. And again, this is recorded. We'll get the link up. And if there are any other questions, please go to our website. We have a contact form. You can type in your question. We'll get that and we'll get right back to you. So thanks again very much. And please stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.